Muhami Matters with Chris Adams, powered by CJA Consulting.
Hello, welcome to Muhami Matters, where credibility meets clarity in legal and professional services. I'm your host, Chris Adams, founder of Muhami and CJA Consulting. In today's episode, I'm joined by Duncan Starr-Boltt of the aptly named Starr-Boltt Coaching for a conversation about ambition, clarity, strategy, intention, and contentment. Duncan's background is anything but linear. His experience spans South Africa, England, Germany, engineering, fitness, business ownership, coaching, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and even breath work, all the way from the high adrenaline stuff down to the woo as well. Along the way, he's moved from physical performance and running a CrossFit gym into deeper work around the mind, vision, purpose, and personal growth. But today's conversation is not just about Duncan's journey. It's also a conversation about something that many professionals and business owners will recognize: that feeling of constantly striving, constantly thinking, and constantly doing, but not always feeling clear about what it's all for. And one of the ideas we're going to explore today is Duncan's view that ambitious people often become highly skilled at striving and discontentment, but less skilled at actual contentment. We're going to look at how clarity changes that, and whether that's clarity in life or in business or intention, or clarity through strategy. So might be a bit more conversational than usual. Duncan's going to bring us his perspective on the coaching goals, the mind, the contentment, and I'm going to also talk a bit about what I see my own observations in professional services, particularly how founders, advisors, and expert-led businesses often do become overloaded when strategy, priorities, and decisions aren't clear. So, Duncan, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on Muhami Matters today.
Oh, no, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm really excited to be here.
I've just talked this up, so we're going to have to get up to the star billing. So to start us off, could you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Starr-Boltt Coaching?
Yeah, so yes, so it's lovely to be here. I really like the introduction.
Thank you.
I've got quite a very broad scope of things. I'm kind of like, I like to try and learn lots of different aspects of life, and I love performance. So I'm really into my own personal development. So I'm always like trying things on myself before I coach. I use them as my tools with coaching. And yeah, so I work with business owners. I really help them kind of optimize their performance, but really like we're talking about it, that all starts with goals. You're going to come up with a strategy, like which is what you do fantastically well. We can't have a strategy without a goal, because we need to understand where they want to get to. So with my coaching, we really start by figuring out. But what I really dig into is what they really want from all areas of life. And I think we talked about this last time we chatted. Very few people have figured out what they want. They have sat down and figured out what they want from all areas of life. And it's really important.
I have to admit, it's been something that I've faced myself recently, where it dawned on me that I haven't really set all of my goals. I'm kind of going along, and I know what I want to do, but not really too far into the future. So it's, I can understand definitely where you're coming from. And I guess diversity is something that really fills into that. You've had a very diverse life so far. So how did your early life across South Africa, England, Germany shape the way that you see people?
Yeah, so I chat to my dad a lot about this, because he's like a real expert on the brain. So he was a motivational coach. So I grew up with a motivational coach for a dad. So I grew up goal setting pretty early. And that brings us nicely on to, like, when you become very driven, you become very skilled at discontentment. Do you see what I mean? So and I saw that a lot in people like me, as we become really skilled at being discontent, and not necessarily skilled at contentment, which is the opposite to discontentment. So that'll be really nice to dig into later. So I kind of, because my dad's goal setting methods are they really get you to project step by step through life. So they give you a really big vision of where you're headed. So that's really helped me in life. I've kind of always understood the big picture of where I want to get to. So, so like I went to university that was actually because I wanted to be a professional rugby player. So I was like, I want to
Okay.
go. I picked engineering because I was like, I was good at maths, and I love that side of things. Like I was good with my hands and mechanically minded. So I got into engineering, and it's a really interesting career. But then through my regular goal setting, I went to Germany for a year and studied as an engineer. That was really really cool. Um, and then but then and then I came to Cambridge. And that's why I moved
Mm.
to Cambridge as an engineer. And then I sat down and did my goals and projected forwards in my life. And I realized I was going to hit all my goals would be hit when I was about 35. I'd have, because my only goals at that point, my big goals were have a lovely wife, kids, and a good job, and a nice house. So that was my goals. And I realized I'd hit those comfortably at 35, but then I'd be stuck because I'd have, my wife would have expensive tastes. My kids would be at nice schools. I'd be stuck in this job and I wouldn't be able to change. And I'd I'd probably start resenting it because it wasn't what, you know, well, when you've achieved everything, I was going to have like a midlife crisis very early. So I kind of predicted that. And then I was like, oh, so what do I really want to do with my life? And I love sport. So then that's when I went into the fitness industry from there. So I think what I really, yeah, that's what's helped me shape this life in the direction of where I want to go. And I think now I live in Crete, we live very close to the beach in a lovely beach in Crete. We spend 8 months of the year there now, and then the other 4 in Cambridge. So we've built like our dream lifestyle. And again, that's because it was very clear where I wanted to be and how I wanted to be, and so that materialized. If that makes sense.
Yes. What really was it? I guess ingrained in you that you really need to set those goals. Is it your nature? Was it nature or nurture? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So probably nurture as um, I suppose uh, a little bit of nature because the Bolts, my dad's side, they all travel a lot, and
Okay.
they're adventurers. It's quite funny. They live all over the world, so there was probably a bit of nature there. Um, then it was uh, very much systematically. I do a lot of journaling and shape my mind because I'm mildly dyslexic, so I'm not, and it's what makes me such a I, I'm turning it into a positive here. It's what makes me a good coach is because I have to learn things from right at the beginning, like a complete beginner. So everything I'm good at, I've started from square one. So um, yeah, I'm kind of very much self-taught. Actually, I've figured out how I learn, and so it helps me when I'm coaching someone because I teach from like a very basic level upwards.
So it must help you assimilate with them quite a lot as well. If you understand the way you learn and you've have had a vast amount of experiences, whether it's living in different places or doing, I mean, quite different. Engineering is quite different to coaching in some ways. I guess it's
Yeah.
engineering with the mind almost with the coaching, but um, yeah, I guess that must help you assimilate with them quite a lot and identify with them and help them to understand. Help you to understand them.
Yeah, I think it does. It does because I've worked with a few engineers and I did computer programming before engineering, so I often have a few clients who do programming, so I can I can broadly understand what they're talking about, which is helpful.
What I guess it must have been quite challenging getting to 35 and then thinking, what next? Got the
Mm.
wife, the beautiful wife, the loving wife, the different place to live. You've got the house and the kids, obviously. Um, how do you reset your goals at that point in time?
Yeah. So, what actually happened? I actually did that exercise because the goal setting method I use is like time travel. So I did that when I was 20. I kind of predicted the 35 crisis when I was 20. So Yeah, so I I dived into the fitness industry at like maybe early 20s and then reset there. But I have changed careers quite regularly, like you say. So 2 years ago I sold my gym. I was a CrossFit gym owner, and that was a great business that went really well for 12 years. And then, but I've always wanted to coach. That was
Mm.
because I've got this amazing goal setting method. The top of it was always to go into coaching. So, but because the CrossFit gym was it was a really good business that ran itself smoothly and kind of grew for a lot of time. Um, I I couldn't just step away. So it was it's nice to finally be into coaching, which I'm loving. I'm loving. It's so much learning and personal development.
It's I mean, you're coaching the body, and then you're coaching the mind and coaching people's mental health, I guess. So there's not too dissimilar. Um, what benefit do you get from it? What do you get a kick out of the coaching and working with a variety of people?
Yes, yeah, it's lovely. Yes, like I had a client last week, and we've worked together. Well, when we started, he didn't have any clients, um,
Okay.
and he was really struggling to find them. And last week, all of a sudden, fully booked. He's fully booked for the next 6 months, and it's like he's gone from zero to a really good income. And that's so satisfying when you change someone's life like that. Well, it's not me; he's done the work. But when you support someone on that journey, that's the thing.
And
Um,
what
so
did you work with him on then? I mean, I don't want to know the secret,
yeah,
but
yeah, very very simple stuff, really. We just you know, it's always all sales are made in relationships. Does that make sense?
yeah,
So it's really figuring out how he's making his relationships, and where his customers are, and just consistently hitting his. We came up with his KPIs, and just consistently hitting his KPIs. So there was things like um, figuring out a lot of it's like I love the 80/20 principle. So figuring out what I just like it as a framework to point out what are the high impact tasks. So with him, the high impact tasks, or often our high impact tasks, because it's relationship built, are the relationships we already have. So it's tempting to go out there and spend all our time on cold leads, on LinkedIn, trying to create new leads, which is cold work, and that's 80% work because it's cold work. Whereas you've
yeah.
got all these warm leads in your past, so spending more time focusing on those. And when we looked at it, and we said, well, actually, if we just focus entirely on your past leads, they're all warm leads. Would you, how long would that take? And he was like, well, months. And I was like, well, let's just do that. We don't need to do any of this cold stuff, actually.
Mm,
Do you see what I mean?
mm.
So we did do you know, some stuff, but mainly w- the we identified the high priority thing was those leads, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, and it's almost the opposite approach of what many advisors or consultants will tell their clients. It's always, how am I going to get that cold lead? What outreach are you going to do? How are people going to find you? But I see that a lot in professional services where I'm like, look back at your previous clients. Look back at the people that you've done a good job for, who are already pleased with your work, who understand you and work well with you. And let's reinvigorate those relationships. And it's much easier to get work from clients that you've worked with before who no one trusts you than to try and find somebody who doesn't know you and build that from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And everyone's different. You'll know this. When we spend time with someone, you just dig in and listen, and you'll see where the warm ones are.
Yes.
And, and then and you'll see the tendency, like you said, most people's tendency is to go for cold leads, because they're just like, oh, I've got to send some cold DMs, and or all sorts of things, just because that's what that's what there's this kind of tendency to viral, isn't there? That we're all excited by viral things. So we're all looking for the answer, the solution to go viral. None of that is warm work. If you see what I mean. So, yeah.
No, that's the being found bit, and being found bit is one thing, but we're working with those in professional services, lawyers, doctors, accountants, or coaches. Part of being found is almost just the part at the end. It's the actual network you've got to have, the recommendations, the referrals that you've got to have from people that the client know and trust, who then recommend you. That's the way that most professionals' work comes through the door, and it's just that cold bit, that being found is just a due diligence thing at the end. It's a tick box for that client. So I completely identify with what you're saying.
Yeah, when you were saying that, I was thinking exactly you, you've got you've got to put the work in as well. You've got to put the work
Yes.
in, and you just got to keep doing the right things. And if you do the right things, it'll work. Because if you're building something, then it'll work. That's the thing, isn't it? If you're putting energy and time into the right people, it's going to pay off.
Energy and time into the right people or the right thing is definitely something that we've got to cover today, because you mentioned before, sort of less is more. So we will turn to that. But first, I wanted to just reflect back on the journey you've had, because I see the synergies between those that I work with in professional services who really start as doing, you did was a pure engineer, purely being an engineer, purely being a doctor, purely being a lawyer or an accountant, and just doing that 99% of the day, to at some point changing the focus where you become a business person.
Mm.
And, if you make a partner, or if you start your own company, or just as you get more senior, you become responsible for relationships, which is a lot more challenging. And obviously that's when they need to come to people like you, who can give them, I guess, an external perspective, um, because the real challenge does become very broad around leadership, around judgment, around business development and strategy, knowing where to focus. So how do you help people with that? I always see coaching as being quite a broad
Mm.
spectrum of things, because in some ways you're dealing with people's minds and their focus and their attitudes and their views of themselves. But it's also quite a lot of, I guess, technical business work in there as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I really like to look at the big picture with someone.
Mm.
Try and really understand who they are and what they're doing, what they should be doing. So really try and get a good overview. I'm good at seeing the whole picture and helping someone see that picture. Um, but then I love the big thing that I've shifted much more into is when we talk about goals, is getting someone to really understand what they want to achieve. So we figure that out, because that's like we said before, people don't sit down and figure out what they want. So some of the biggest things they want in life, they've probably already got. Um,
Yeah.
and and they're just not spending time doing it. So it's helping them with that, helping them see that by and large that they're there in a lot of aspects. So that can really bring a sense of peace. Um, and then it's helping them. I project forward. So this is a great way to explain it. So when we're trying to change who we are, our identity, okay, dictates our behavior. So because it's all about our behavior. How we act, how we think, how we communicate, comes down to our identity. And our identity of who we are is based on our thoughts. What our thoughts? Okay, that's our identity, and it'll be our thoughts of the past and our thoughts of the future. And that's how we see ourselves, and how we see ourselves is how we identify and make decisions. So we can change the past, and I've studied NLP, so we can change someone's past, but it's confronting. It's confronting work, and it takes time. But the future is very easy to change. It's not confronting at all. We just need to set goals. Okay. And so when we set goals, we change your identity of who you are. Does that make sense? If we get a strong
Yes.
enough visualization, you know you're going to get there. We've changed who you believe you are on a a core identity level. So that's the biggest shift I've found with working with people that I do with them now is I change their future. I get them to see and we do a really strong visualization of where they're going to be when they get what they really want. So we really dig into that. We visualize it. I put themselves in the shoes of that person. I use like a beach. They've taken all the family away. We sit on the beach, and then and then I say, right, I really get them to feel it. So we write about it first because that's really so writing about it really puts it into our mind. So they write about what they've achieved, how they're feeling, really paint the picture and make it as real as possible. Then I do a visualization with them, put them there on the beach to make it even more real. And then we come back and I say, okay, now because our imagination is this amazing thing. I'm like, can you imagine being that person achieving those things? And yeah, I can. It's easy because the imagination, that's what it's good at. Do you see what I mean? I'm like, okay, so how has that person changed? What are they doing differently? So how are they? And a key thing with most of us is how are they communicating? When you're super successful, how do you communicate? How do you talk about yourself, your products and things? And that's a change we can do now. We can start talking that way now. So that's one like really powerful thing is often people aren't confident in what they're talking about. Do you see what I mean? So we can bring that in for them, and then we say, what are the big things? Because we were going to hopefully talk about that later. What are the big high impact tasks you now do to be that successful? So to become that huge successful person, you've got to do certain high impact tasks that you're not currently doing. So what are those? Who are your big customers? Who are the big fish you're now dealing with? That kind of thing. And then we also ask them, what have you stopped doing? And that's a huge, powerful one. So that's often like, I've stopped discounting my services. I've stopped underselling myself. I've stopped putting myself down. Lots of things. So, and then we just work on closing that gap gradually. If that makes sense.
It does, but it raises a lot of questions in my mind, I think. Because you mentioned a lot of concepts there. So we're talking about setting goals, and I guess it was interesting. You mentioned the past, you mentioned the future, you didn't really mention the present. So the present is just, I guess, where you are.
We can't think in the present. As soon as we think, it's the thoughts are all because the present is now, and then that's gone. Does that make sense? So there's no actual thoughts in the present. Thoughts are always either about the past or the future because the mind's not quick enough to be in the present. Does that make sense?
I hadn't thought about it that way before. Because so you hear that analogy of just relax, live in the present, don't worry about it. But yeah, time doesn't stand still, does it?
Yeah. So being in the present is more like the minute we start thinking, we're out of the present. So we touched on. We said we were going to mention this as well. So it's understanding the mind. So we are not our mind, and that's so powerful to just understand that our mind is ours. This is an Eastern understanding. So in the West, we believe we're the mind. We try and fix this mind. Do you see what I mean? It's and you could fill a library full of books on how to fix the mind. So
yeah.
So it's incredibly, imagine trying to read all those books just to understand the mind. That's the Western way. Do you see what, so it's never ending. It's like pushing water up a hill trying to fix the mind because both our minds are changing due to this conversation. I'm learning from you. You're learning from me. We're kind of our minds changing. The people listening to this, their minds adapting. So our mind is constantly changing. And if we believe we are our mind, then we're constantly changing. We're this unstable thing. But the reality is our mind is a tool that we can use, but we can observe our mind. That's the thing. So if we pause, we can observe a thought. And when we try and observe thoughts, they're really elusive. Did you see what I mean?
They really are. Yes, I was just trying.
But if we pay attention, a thought, because we think with words. So this is another interesting. So this is the benefit of having my dad on the. He's really interested on the brain. So basically, without words, we can't think. So words are the language of our brain. So a good example of this is without the word for car, we can't talk about cars. Do you see what I mean?
Hmm.
So once you have the word car, we can now talk and think about cars. Same thing goes for wheels. Do you see what I mean? So our whole thinking process is vocab based. So
Like an association, yeah.
yeah. So when you're thinking, you're often it's a word you say to yourself. You might say something like car, and then and then there'll be you'll respond to that. So it's interesting, but yeah. So it's understanding that we're not the mind is really powerful. So because this mind, sorry, I've gone slightly off subject here. So and it's because most people, if we believe we are our mind, we can never be okay. Which
Okay.
is a key understanding, because our mind believes it's so many things. So our mind believes it's our house, it believes it's the money in our bank, it believes it's our car, our family, our loved ones, but it also believes it's the country we're in, believes we're the country we're from. So it believes we're our football team, our rugby team. It believes we're our favorite sports, like movie star, music, and it believes it's so many things like politics, and whenever one of these, because it believes it's this thing, because your mind believes, for example, we can use football because it's
Mhm.
very topical. So if
It
your
is.
mind believes you are like uh well you're I'll use like an you're English, for example, like because my mind believes it's English, even though I'm half South African. I don't know why it does it, and I live in Crete most of the time, but it believes it is. So 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 when I'm watching the football later, if I believe I'm English and England start losing, then I'm not okay. And you'll see
Mm.
that people who are too strongly identified with their football team, they'll be very upset when their football team lose. Like their life will be over. Like their partner will be like, "Let's not talk to your dad. His his team lost." Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I know people like that. Yeah, I've been like that myself at times, but yes.
Yeah, so it's the same. So our mind, it thinks it's so many things like politics, like if our political parties, or so like even if it's a celebrity, if someone slates a celebrity who we like, we're like, oh, that's not right. We're arguing because we believe we're that celebrity. It's part we're identified. So yes, and then we come back to other things like money in the bank. So if our mind believes we're our money, so because our money's never stable. Does that make sense? Because of like
Mm.
all sorts of things internationally fluctuate. So our money's never stable. So we're never okay because we're always worried about this thing. Do you see what I mean? So our mind, it worries about our house, it worries about our car, it worries about our family. It's worried about everything because it believes it is these things. Um, so if we believe we're our mind, then we can never be okay. And that's a key thing. And the small shift is just to understand that we're not the mind. That the mind is part. It can be part of us. It can be ours. But just let it be. Just be like, oh, the mind's upset because England just lost at football. Do you see what I mean? And then you can just observe it and be like, but I'm okay. I'm alive. Do you see what I mean? So it's just that little gap, and that's what like mindfulness, meditation, they all teach us that little gap, that ability to observe the mind. Then the mind can be racing. It can, we can finish the work day and the mind's like completely racing out of control, and you're like, yeah, my mind's racing, but you can do a quick scan. You're like, I'm okay. So you can be okay when your mind's, and that's very different to when you're like, I'm not okay. My mind is racing. I am not okay. Do you see
So
feel the difference
how do you
between those two
work with
things?
people to get to that position then, where they're thinking about their mind, or they're separating themselves from their mind a little, observing their mind? How do you get them to that position?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. So with that, it's quite straightforward. So with all of these things, so when I'm saying something, you might be like, yeah, that makes so much sense, but at the moment, this is just information I've given you. Someone's told you. um, if you like it, we need to make it our own information. So there's two aspects. You've got one, turn that into your own knowledge, that I'm not the mind. And I would do that with journaling, or, I would, because you could do it through conversation, but journaling's much more powerful. So you just write about it, write about the subject in your own words, regularly, and it'll become your own knowledge, because you'll explore it and you'll say, oh yeah, that's right. And that's right. And do you see what I mean? So form your own view of it, put it into your own words. And then once it's your own understanding, that's your understanding. But then that's just an understanding. It's not an experience. The second point, so you've got two things. You've got experiential and understanding. Then the experiential work would just be observing the mind. Do you see what I mean? So, and the best way to do that, I would say, you've got, like, mindfulness is really good. There's a 3-minute mindfulness practice, which I like to share with people. You just press play. It's just 3 minutes. It's just just scan through the body, notice the sensations, what thoughts are around. Just notice the thoughts, and then you just follow the breath. It's like 3 minutes, really cool. And in that, when as soon as you're watching, the watcher is who you are. That's the person who can watch thoughts, watch emotions, watch feelings, and that's the conscious us. So that's it seems very similar to the mind, but it's just that conscious you is able to observe the mind as well. So it's just getting to know that slight gap there, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Working with a lot of professional service, especially people like lawyers, they're quite rational people. I mean, to be a good lawyer, you need to be quite black and white, analytical, and rational, very rational. Same with accountants and people and I guess doctors as well, to a degree. Doctors may be a little more open-minded, but it must be quite challenging. Well, I know it is challenging to try and do what you've just talked about, where you almost disassociate yourself and are an observer of your mind, and you're somewhere in the middle, as a separate being, I suppose. I mean, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the different parts of what makes up you? So you've obviously got your mind over here, and I guess you've got your body, soul, or whatever you would believe in, I suppose. But how do you rationally kind of get people to rationalize this in their heads?
Yeah, because I'm really logical, like you said, actually, and I like this because it's really logical. It's all based on experience. Like, if you can't prove it to yourself, it's not real. That's the thing. Like, all of this isn't. You should be able to observe it all yourself. It should make complete logical sense. And one of my favorite clients, who's we've reduced our sessions. We're just meeting much less regularly now, because he was a lawyer. He's really logical. And he just got mindfulness. So, because he does strategy, and like you, and because he's like, well, yeah, I'm a strategist. So this is, for him, he's just like, this is logical. Do you see what I mean?
It's another strategy, yeah.
He likes it. So, but so it's just explaining this isn't in any way sort of spiritual or anything like that. We're not going to use any of those terms, and I don't really go into any of those terms myself either, because I'm very logical, and I'm just like, I just deal with the things that are real, that I can actually experience and prove. So yeah, you've got, like you said, you've got different elements. You've got your body. We can observe the physical sensations of the body. You've got the mind. We can observe the thoughts, and we've got feelings and emotions. We can observe feelings and emotions, and then and then you've got the watcher. Is the watcher, the observer, the person who can. That's the person who can consciously choose, and I'll explain it quite nicely in a second. And those are the different elements, really, if you see what I mean. Then you've got the different elements available to our perception. You've also got energy. You can perceive how energized you feel. That's kind of thing. Not like energy as in like, because I can't really feel that. Some people can, but I'm not really able to feel that. But more like, how energized are you feeling out of 10 right now, physically and mentally? So you've got, so but I would mainly break it into the other ones. Sorry, I've gone a bit complex there. But what I can give you one really good example. So consciously in control. So when if we see something that, say we, do you, do you, do you like cars? What kind
Yeah, I
of,
love
what,
cars.
awesome. All right. So say you see a really nice car. Can you sort of say, you see like I don't know, like a Bentley Continental or something like that, like a really
Mm.
nice car. And you're like, oh, nice. So visually, you'll see an object. The light will reflect off that object into your eyes. Your eyes will translate this into an electrical signal, which passes up up the optic nerve to the brain. Okay. The brain will say, the brain will then recognize it. It'll say, car. And then it will go, oh, Bentley car, no, Bentley Continental. And okay, and at that point, once the brain's identified it as a Bentley Continental, that's when you consciously or unconsciously can choose how to respond. Does that make sense? You can respond to feel good, which would be the reaction, or there's a split second there where you can choose to respond. Um, so, so the same thing would be, the reaction is, feel good, and then you go, I feel good, Bentley Continental. So at that same point, if it was a real, like, really rusty, horrible car, do you know what I mean? Like, or if it was a Bentley Continental spray pink, do you see what I mean? Really badly,
My
you'd see
daughter
it.
would like that.
Oh dear, do you see what I mean? So you'd go Bentley Continental, and then your brain would go, that's bad. And then your reaction would be to feel bad. But there's a split second there where you can choose to go, I'm not going to feel bad. Do you see what I mean? So there's that's the watcher. Is just that split second. So you can grow that ability to consciously choose how to respond to life as well, which is quite cool.
That I think is what is interesting. I wrote down, you were talking before about control.
Mm.
It feels to me like it is a lot about people trying to get some kind of control over their emotions, over their mind, over whatever it may be. And when people are very anxious or worried or overwhelmed, it
Mm.
is a lot about control from what I can see. Is that what you put it down to?
Yeah, so you've got so if we're coming to that side of things, because it's one of my favorite subjects. So yeah, you've got different elements. So I've studied it in and I've studied it and practiced it on myself to make sure, so you've got lots of different elements of mindfulness, meditation, breath work, yoga. And when our mind's out of control, it's racing. So our mind has a lot of momentum. So if all day we're talking, every action we perform carries momentum, and in the East they call this karma. Karma is actually momentum. They call it like momentum of action. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of spinning of the mind, and it's really good to stop the spinning. So that's one thing. You can just you can break the momentum of action. So there's practices which can just completely break the momentum of whatever's there. The emotion, it can clear the emotion and it can clear all the thoughts, and then you're just left with like a real clean slate. So that's kind of like a washing of the brain, or a washing of the system, a reset of the system. It's like a system reset. So that will just clear everything and let you feel really calm and relaxed. And then you've got practices which can just relax you as well. So they'll just relax you. They won't necessarily break the momentum. They'll relax you. So like an exhale, for example, like if we take a deep breath in and a long, slow breath out, the long exhale just relaxes us. Can you feel that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice, actually, isn't it? Sorry, I just enjoy that for a second. So that's just relaxing. We haven't necessarily reduced we haven't got rid of all the momentum of thoughts, but we've just relaxed. So you've got two things there. We can clear all that momentum and breath work's amazing for that. We can just in 15 minutes we can completely clear like your state, your momentum, and you'll be like brand new, like like you've just dived into the ocean and had a swim and come out fresh. So that's one way. Another way, we can just relax. And the quickest way to do that is with a sigh. So like a deep breath in and a long, that's the quickest way to relax. It changes our state. And then we've got things that generate the ability to be consciously in control, focus, and things like mindfulness really trains the skill of concentration and focus. Uh, and um, and yeah, we can grow focus and concentration with things like different drills, like mindfulness of the breath, where you just keep bringing your attention back to the breath, because throughout the day we're often multitasking, so we're training our attention to be very scattered. Okay, so the result of that is our attention just our brain gets very scattered, and we think, oh, it's just me, my brain's scattered. But no, you can train it. You can. It doesn't matter where it is right now. You can improve that by training attention. And so mindfulness, that 3-minute mindfulness, is really good for training attention. And any practice which brings you to focus on something, whether that's like a body scan, brings your attention to scan through the body. I love those. I just think it's the best thing, actually, a body scan to relax and really switch off. But also it's a training of attention. You focus here, all, so yeah, there's guided practices are the best thing to train attention, because if our attention's all over the place and we try to train our attention ourselves, then it's not the trouble with that. We're not going to be able to do it, because we're going to try and focus on our breath, and our mind's just going to go walkabout, whereas if we've got a guided practice, and the guided practice every now and then says, bring your attention back to the breath, you're like, oh yeah, you bring it back. So yeah, where a lot of people go wrong is they don't have a guided practice, and they go, oh, I've got this now, I'll do this without the practice.
So the guided practice is like an audio prompt or a video prompt or something like that.
Yeah, and I've got a few I can share. I can always share. I've got the 3-minute mindfulness, 10-minute body scan. I've got one I produced. The mindfulness isn't me. The 10-minute body scan's me. Then I've got one for sleep, which is really good. It really helps you. The momentum we talked about, clears all that momentum and starts to focus your mind as well, and it also winds you down for sleep. So I've got one that I can share as well with people.
Yeah, that's something I'll definitely take from you. So I guess, yes, one challenge I experienced myself, and I think probably a lot of, high energy people are doing, people who are spending a lot of day working and thinking, is actually being able to relax at the end of the day. Last night I worked till 1:30 a.m. and then I just can't go straight to sleep. I need to just be able to do that, and it's very difficult. So how do you help with that?
Yeah, so I've also got guided breathwork practice, which would be the deepest way. But specifically for sleep, I've got an 18-minute one. It's perfect for that. So, and you can tell we've got similar personality. I'm wired. Do you see what I mean? I can't have caffeine. I wake up fully caffeinated. I struggle to wind down. So I've spent a lot of time learning about that and how to do it. So the sleep, it's called a sleep reset one. That's really good. It's also really good if you wake up, because often you'll be able to get to sleep and then you'll wake up wired, your mind racing. So
yeah,
you just, my recommendation with that, just put the headphones in, press play, don't do anything, put it in, press play, and then you'll wind down and you'll relax. Because the key, the practice itself describes it quite nicely. So that's good. And then you've got this thing called yoga nidra, which is awesome. So once you have yoga nidra, I'm a yoga nidra instructor, which is quite cool. When I was in India, I was in India for a month learning lots of different things. And yoga nidra is yogic sleep. So you just lay down and you try not to sleep, okay, which is good in itself, okay, because normally you're trying to sleep, right? And when you're trying to sleep, you can't sleep. But if I told you, right, listen to this and try not to sleep, you're probably going to go to sleep. Do you see what I mean? So it's good like that in a moment. But if you don't sleep, it's even more effective. So that's the benefit of yoga nidra, because it's like it's a really deep, relaxes you on a deep level through listening. So 40 minutes of yoga nidra is equivalent to like 4 hours of sleep. And that's because normal sleep doesn't go as deep there's only certain parts of normal sleep where it goes deep, and often our normal sleep we don't go that deep because of stress and things like that. So yeah, yoga nidra goes much deeper. So if you have a yoga nidra in your toolkit when you can't sleep, or if you wake up like at 4 and you're like, oh, I've got to get up at 5, and I haven't had enough sleep. You're like, oh, it's okay. I've got yoga nidra. I can have another 4 now. So you just put it in, and then you relax on it, and you wake up very refreshed. So having that, can you feel how if you have that, just takes the pressure off to sleep.
Yeah.
And once the pressure's off to sleep, sleeping's a lot easier.
And I guess you sleep deeper. That's the other thing is you go to bed wired, maybe you fall asleep, but then, as you say, you wake up wired early, or you just, I look at my Whoop results on my Apple Watch and I go, you haven't slept deeply, Chris. So it's obviously you do need to force yourself, I think, to have that wind down and that disassociation with the day and I guess observe your mind and breathe.
Yeah, those I'll send those to you because they're really cool, and it'll be lovely to hear what you think. Because they can be life changing. I know they have been for me. And it, when you're like, I've only got 6 hours to get to sleep. I'm not going to sleep. I'm too stressed about sleep. But if you know you've got a yoga nidra there, then you might sleep right through just because you've got it there as an option. It just takes the pressure off, which is really nice. So those practices are great. And then you've got some other ones, but I would say those ones are really cool. I've probably got like 4 or 5 key ones that I like to recommend to people.
Talked a lot about, I guess, the solutions and the techniques and both Western and Eastern approaches. You mentioned NLP, you've mentioned yoga nidra, you've mentioned a lot of different techniques, breathing. What are the challenges that people come to you with? Maybe you give us some examples, some stories of the people you've worked with, and how you help them with these techniques.
Yeah. Well, sleep is a really good one. So I have a sleep. I've got a sleep workshop I put on, and it's actually an online course now. And that I've had people who really struggle to sleep, and they do my online course, which is like 3 hours, maybe 2 hours. I think it's not very long, and then they sleep. And that's a really rewarding thing. But that's not typically what I work with people on, because I can do it in an hour and a half. I'm like, just do the course. Do you see what I mean? I find that kind of thing's really satisfying. I met a lady the other day who'd she listens to it a lot, and it really helped her. She read my book as well, which is kind of on that subject. I do really enjoy. And when we're talking business owners as well, like we're talking efficiency. So I the more we want to achieve in life, because we can go into less is more a bit now as well.
Yeah.
Often when I'm working with a business owner, these things are part, they're things they want to fix. Do you see what I mean? They want to get better balance with these things. But what's going to help make them invest in themselves and commit to coaching is their business, is being successful in their business. So I always make sure those two things go hand in hand. And luckily, like me, I love that side of things as well. Like I love achieving things and helping people achieve more. And the more I've got into coaching, which is really lovely, is we talked about the 80-20 principle and the less is more. The more the more it's all coming together. Less is more is my kind of coaching strategy now.
Okay, tell us a bit more on what that means.
Yeah, so it really it basically means the way I like to explain it is the world isn't our minds are trying to understand the world. Okay, and our typical worldview is that the more work we do, the more money we make. That's kind of the busier we are, the more successful we are. That's kind of the default brain view of the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess the flip side of that is if you're really busy and you're still not successful, then it's really, brings you down. I've seen people like that a lot.
Yeah. So we've got this and it's understanding the brain is not, it's an amazing tool, but it doesn't see reality. Okay. A better tool, a better framework for understanding reality is the 80-20 principle. And that's because, and I can explain that, and that's because, and what that basically says is 20% of our actions produce 80% of our results. Is a really good way of seeing the world. It's a much more accurate way of seeing the world. And I've come up with a really good explanation for that. So because how I work is I'm like, yeah, I love the 80-20, but how do I apply it to myself? How do I get it? I can't quite get it. So I was like, I dug into it. And basically, if big things exist, then the 80-20 principle is true. Okay, so if big things exist, and we know big things exist, does that make sense? So provided big things exist, 80-20, and I'll give you an example now.
Yeah,
okay?
tell me what a big thing is. Is this like a big life event or a big value or family?
Yeah,
what is a big thing?
It's basically saying that if so a big thing is if there's a so all tasks aren't equal. So our worldview says work hard, make money, or you'll be successful. That doesn't apply for that. There's at no point does it say just do the big things, the big tasks, the high impact tasks that produce results. Those produce much more than everything else. And the good analogy is fishing. So say you were a fisherman, and I'll use England. All right. So say you're a fisherman and you go fishing in your local river. Okay. You don't know where the fish are. Okay. You go fishing. You could fish all day and you might not get anything. Okay. But let's say you kind of got the hang of it. You catch 1 to 2 kilograms of fish. Okay. And you can feed your family. But you have to fish every day. Okay. To feed your family. So you can't do anything else. You've got to fish to feed the family all day. Okay. Or if we realize that big things exist, you hop on a plane, you fly over to South Africa, and we're not actually allowed to do this. Okay, you go shark fishing. Okay, you hire a boat, you catch yourself a great white shark, and it's 1.5 tons of fish. Okay, now you can feed your family for the next 3 to 6 months in one day. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a good analogy because catching a shark is challenging as well. Like it's scary, it's challenging, it's big stuff. Do you see what I mean? So it's a good analogy. It's a bad analogy because I like sharks. They're really important. Like they're a key part of we shouldn't eat sharks, but it's a good analogy. That's why I'm using it. Does that make sense?
So you're saying it's a big effort to fly to South Africa, catch a massive animal that's probably going to catch you first, versus going down to the local estuary in England or whatever and catching a small fish. Potentially big effort for big returns, smaller effort for smaller returns.
Yeah. So basically that kind of points out. I like that is in business. Who are our big fish? So we need to identify who the big fish are. So that exercise we talked about earlier when we said, let's fast forward to your future self. The big fish you're catching there are different to the ones you're using today. Because to be 10 times more successful than we are now, which is kind of the scaling I use to help them think outside the box, your customers are completely different. And you can start working on those customers now. So it's figuring out who are the big fish that make a high impact, and focusing on those. So as a framework, it's understanding that big things exist, big sharks exist, big customers exist, and if we spend 2 hours a day, if you spend 2 hours a day doing the right things, so it might not be cold calling. You might have to say, oh, I know where that customer is. I might have to drive an hour, and I might have to invest a bit of money to go to where he's going to be, and socialize there, and then you'll meet that person. So it's looking at things differently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it does. And I guess in my work, I'd often do see people adding more activity when they feel unclear. and they get on getting
Yeah, you were
overwhelmed.
saying that.
They do more networking, more content, more meetings, more initiatives, more calls, but without really that activity can become a substitute, I guess, for direction. And so, when I talk to them, I'm like, okay, let's calm down. Let's put some strategy behind this. Let's work out who you want to talk to, who you need to talk to, who are your big fish. So yeah, I'm using your analogy now. I'm getting it. It's making sense with the work that I do, with the people I work with, and even for myself. It's hard to take your own advice, by the way, Duncan, but it's I see that it's so easy to be busy being busy, and I guess trying to catching very small fish when you should be spending a little more time catching the big ones.
Yeah, and I love that, because we were talking about that before, weren't we? With you, so you often see that people they're just they're struggling, so they just fill their diary up doing all the wrong things.
Yeah, they don't realize that it's not necessarily that it's the wrong things consciously. They're just trying anything they can, a scattergun approach to try and throwing mud at a wall is another way to say it. Spray and pray is to just land a customer, or to to try and get more work and try and make more money, make more revenue. And they end up just being overwhelmed because they're effectively, if they're a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, they've gone away from being, that doctor or that lawyer, advising on law or advising on accounting and talking to clients and keeping existing clients. And they focus so much on trying to get new ones through the door, or, talk to a nice person down the street who's never going to give them a lead. You go and have a nice coffee with someone for 2 hours. You have a nice conversation, but that person's never going to be either going to be able to help you because they just don't have the right contacts, or they don't have the right circles. They don't work with the clients that you work with. So nice as it might be as a social thing, it's not a good way to spend your day doing business. Likewise, yeah. So what I do a lot with people is to work out who are your big fish, who do you actually need to target from a client perspective, but also really from a referrer perspective, because it's when you start collaborating with people that have something in common with you, complement you. Like for me, if I'm a fractional CMO / chief revenue officer, fractional CFOs are great partners for me because they have been in the business. They can see the books. They can see where the revenue gap is in a business. There's nothing they can do about it. I can do something about that, but I can't really see the books. I don't know how big that gap is. So a big fish for me is an established CFO, fractional CFO, who we can work together because we're working with the same clients. We can help each other out, and our clients end up with the best of both worlds because they've almost got a 360-degree service. They've got the finance stuff sorted, they've got the marketing sorted, and the sales and revenue sorted, and all of a sudden they're focused, and that tension, that stress is off their shoulders, and they can move forward with clarity, and you get bigger and bigger, and get some sleep at night.
Oh, brilliant! What? Yeah, I know a few CFOs, so I'll connect you with them, which is
great. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's brilliant. What you're saying. So when you're working with people as well, like you'll because like you said, if you get a lawyer, they're great at being a lawyer, but they don't. A strategy is, I mean, like we said, come up with a goal, and then the strategy. And how are they supposed to get that strategy? That's the thing. Like with what you do is so important, because they're great at a lawyer, but where are we getting this strategy from? Like,
yeah, well, and that's the thing. A lot of people I've spoken to are, say, "Oh, Chris, we need to do some social media. We need to do some build a new website. We need to do this." And I'm like, whoa! You've got to take a step back, because you can spend a lot of time and effort and money on doing SEO, doing social media. If you're not talking to the audience that's actually going to buy from you, it's a complete waste of time and money, and you just have too much on your shoulders as a result. If you're focused and targeted and know who you've got to talk to, just take a step back. And the strategic bit doesn't take long. It's a day. Sometimes I sit with clients just for half a day,
really,
to get their thoughts down on paper, to talk to somebody else, and then they go away with the clarity. I give them a report, we give them a plan, but most of it they've come up with themselves. They've just needed someone to talk to and someone to rationalize it with. Probably a little bit
Yeah.
like what you do with your clients in the coaching world.
That's right.
Um,
And when you were saying that, you'll probably see this all the time. You've kind of said it. Is like you've got to be so careful as a business owner. Like people are, who you're talking to, because you'll talk to someone and they go, "Oh, I've really got into this SEO thing, and I've got to get my website." And then like they go, "Oh, I've got to get my SEO right." And you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hang on, let's," because there's so many different, like we said, like some people will get obsessed with um, LinkedIn, like they're like, "Oh, I can't figure out the algorithm," and you're like, "Well, you don't need to worry about the algorithm on LinkedIn. That's just for your current customers and people who know you to confirm that you're good. Don't spend too long on it. It depends it depends on the marketing strategy which you help them with. It's
yeah. I want
people.
to get them I want to get them in the right place and talk to the right people, both from a supplier point of view. So from a supplier point of view, and also from a client and referrer point of view, so that they're really not wasting their time and money and their efforts, and they can focus on doing what they're good at, which is advising clients. So it's been quite intentional, I guess. Which brings me actually neatly to intention in professional life. You talked a bit in our pre-discussion the other day about intentional living. What does intentional living mean to you, Duncan?
Yeah. What I had, I mentioned one of my favorite clients who was a lawyer, and we we sort of just dug into things with him, like, and we were talking about being intentional, and he came up with this brilliant idea. We just said, because in the evenings, because he worked, there was his work was with another country where it's quite late in the evening, so he'd finish quite late at night, and he was like, "I feel like I'm wasting my evenings." And so we just came up with this idea to set intentions at the end of the day. You just after work, because I always get people, when we're talking about clearing the mind, the key thing after work is to actually write down, clear your mind, put all the things for the tomorrow on a to-do list. Make sure there's no questions in your head. So that's really important, and do that on paper.
That's
So
good advice.
what questions are running through my mind right now, and answering them, because those are the things that will wake you up. The questions. Do you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
answer the questions. Say, and if they're or put them on your to-do list for tomorrow to ask the question. Anyway, so we finished with that. But then the next thing for him was just be like, what if I set my intention for this evening? What would I like to do this evening? And we thought he'd come up with like loads of plans, like, I want to do this, I want to see this person, I want to go here. And then the next week he was like, "Oh, it worked so well." He was like, "I just said, I'm just going to relax. I've had a nice day." And then, so the evening, he just doesn't do anything because, of course, most people don't in the evenings. And then he just said, but there's complete satisfaction. We talk about satisfaction. When you're intentional, if you intend, then if you intend to just relax, then you're content. So he feels really content in the evenings just because he's said, "What would I like to do?" And then he does it. So, yeah, being intentional is actually really powerful. And again, we've come back to writing. Like writing is my dad's such a fan of journaling. And it is really powerful when and the reason being, like, if I say something to you, okay, it's coming in through sound, so it makes a bit of an impression in the brain, not a bit of an impression. But when we write something, we hear it, we say it to ourselves. So that's actually happening. We visually read it, so we're seeing something, and we're mechanically, using a different part of our brain, creating something. It's a very strong memory when it has a very strong effect on you when you write something. And also, when we write, we engage our logical part of the brain. So I know you're logical, and a lot of your clients are logical. The only time we can be truly logical is when we're writing or or typing something. That's the only time when we can actually be at our most logical, because we have all the data in front of us. So writing, setting intentions, you can if you imagine trying to set your intentions for your evening in your mind, and like we've just said, our mind's scattered because we've been busy all day. We'll be like, I'd like to do this, and then it's gone. Then you go, oh no, I'd like to. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't work. Whereas you set your intentions on text, like 2 minutes, done, and it's powerful. Does that make sense?
Does it then have the opposite effect if you don't achieve those intentions? So if you say, I'm going to log off at 7 p.m. and go home to see my family, and then you get to 7 o'clock and go, I've got to finish this. And then
Yeah.
it has the opposite effect then, because you're like, okay, I haven't, one, I really want to do that. And two, I haven't done it. And three, I'm still going.
Yeah, that's the negative side. That's the negative side. Yeah, and then it would just be like, again, it's how we talk to ourselves. So, it's just pre-planning how seeing the win as a win. So, don't say if I don't do it, it's a negative thing. That's the thing, is just saying if I do this, it's a positive thing. And if I don't do this, having sympathy, again, disassociating from the brain and having sympathy with your mind, and you as a being, being like, forgiving, you know, yeah, I think that's really important, because otherwise we can be really hard on ourselves, and then that makes it so much worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I guess that does go to the point of just separating yourself from the feelings, I guess, and the mind, and being somewhere in the middle where you're an observer, not feeling it or overthinking it.
Yeah, and paper's the best way to do all this, so all of this, all of the things we've discussed, you'd be amazed. Everyone who's watched this, they can probably just write them down and talk, and they'll be like, "Oh, I really get that," But if we try in our mind, it's really hard, because we just talked, a lot of different concepts, and the brain can't remember them all. Do you see what I
No.
mean? They're all over the place. But if we got a bit of paper out now and wrote them all down, they'd come out, and would have some real clarity as well. So yeah, I think, but yeah, I think being kind to ourselves really important. I think that's yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely important. One thing you mentioned earlier was, um, you know, reflecting on the past, but the past is the past. The present doesn't really stay. We need to look to the future and plan a future goal.
Mm.
What what happens when people can see that future goal, but then don't really know how to get there and find that to be quite a stressor? Because that can have quite a stressful effect. You're like, I really want to do that in a year's time, but
Yeah.
I'm not making the progress I want to. I don't know how I'm going to get there. And I see this a lot with the people that I
Mm.
work with, because they're trying their best, so they're just very frustrated.
That's a great question. And so the key, it's how we see ourselves. So how we're measuring our progress. So that's what they're doing there, is it's their progress they're trying to measure, and they're measuring their progress against an end goal. And we shouldn't measure that way. We should always measure our progress backwards.
Okay.
Um, so every single day we will be making progress. And if we change how we see progress to looking backwards, suddenly we feel great. So because we every day you will make progress in some areas of your life, and you will grow. And when you start looking at it like that, so you can, and a good way to do that with someone would be, say, let's look back 6 months, where you were then and where you are now with your goal. How have you progressed? And they'll be like, oh, I've done this. Yeah. And you're like, oh, great. Now let's look back a month. How have you progressed in the last month? And then you can bring it right up to a day. And how have you progressed since, or last week? How have you progressed towards your goal since last week? And they'll have made progress. And it's a very different way of, very different way of looking at things. And it's just getting that person to not measure themselves against the ideal. Does that make sense?
It does, but what if they're looking back and saying, okay, I've made some progress. I appreciate that. That's great, but it's
Yeah.
not enough. It's not, I need more. I need more. How do we just
Yeah. Yeah. So
calm ourselves down?
yeah. Yeah. So I would, with that. So what I would say is, when I set big goals, you want to see the steps. You want to really give them so you've got they're not seeing the progress because they're not seeing the steps to get there. So, so I've got this great sheet. I produced a couple of, let me grab it. It's quite
Go for it.
cool. Here it is. So this would be good for that person, which is like a 12-week thing. Do you see what I mean? So we've got, these are the goals, and then here's your, week 1, do that. Then we've got the yellow's a month in. They've achieved that. 4 more weeks, another month. Do you see what I mean? So,
Yeah.
So what that does for someone helps them see the steps, but how the brain works, how we can't visualize things. Do you see what I mean? So at the moment, that person is seeing here and here. What we need to do is you need to give them a visual tool to allow them to see all the little steps there. And drawing it out on paper, so we've come back to journaling, which you can hear I like, because it gives our brain a little map. So now when I think about those goals there, I'm like, well, so one of them, for example, is my mum has really bad knees and a bad back. Okay. And she's not getting on well. She's not making progress. And I was like, I just need to video call her, because I was a personal trainer. I can help her. Video call her once a week, do the exercise with her. And I wrote that out for 12 weeks. And after 12 weeks, she's going to feel really good. And it's like, I just have to call her once a week. Do you see what I mean?
Just to check in.
Yeah, it's really powerful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that help as well? Do you think that would help that person?
I think it would help. Yeah, I think it would help me, or help a lot of the people I work with. Yeah, and is what again, rationally thinking about is what I help them do, is basically narrow down what they need to focus on and put it down on paper and give them the plan, and they know give them the steps. So yeah, we've all got to do that for ourselves. And perhaps you make a good point about pen and paper, because a lot of us have moved away to doing things electronically. There's so many systems you can use. There's different things with AI in it that will, help you. They are assistants, so they are good, but you can't, I guess, get away from that manual bit that you need to do to calm your mind, I guess, and be in control. You've always got to be in control. It comes back to control, doesn't it? You need to have a plan, have an assistant. You can have as many employees or whatever as you want, but you need to be in control yourself of your destiny and of the steps to get there, because otherwise you can't settle your mind down, I think, to progress it.
And Chris, that is such a good point. Like, when you said AI, if we can have that. We could say to AI, tell me what to do once a week for the next 12 weeks to get me there. Okay, but we can't visualize it, so we can't relax. And computers as well. Like, they can't, because we can't see that whole screen. Maybe the laptop's too small. Like, this is a huge piece of paper. So yeah, sometimes once you've done that strategy for them, giving them a real visual map of it, that they can look at. That's what I'm working on now with people. Is I've realized people need to see that visual.
Yes.
It's very calming.
And are you producing the visual for them, or are they doing the exercise themselves?
They're doing the exercise, but I'm probably going to produce the printout for them to fill out, if that makes sense. And because because they do need to see it. They need to see it. So yeah, I love this process though. But like you said, it's the strategy. So what you do for people gives them clarity. And if someone's really down, they probably just can't visually see the picture. So I just draw it out for them on a bit of paper so they can see, you're here. If you keep doing this, you're going to get to here. Just take them through all the steps, and they go, I get it now.
It's actually very funny you say that. Client I worked with earlier this year, so he was struggling. He had big targets for this year, and he's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I went into his office. We sat together. We worked out, okay, where's all the work been coming from, where we need to get to. But we literally worked down and mapped out the organization and the external, internal audiences. and where each piece of work is coming from, who all the possible referrers were, the flow of the work. And it was so therapeutic for him and for me in getting that down on a whiteboard, maybe not so much on a piece of paper, but
Whiteboard, awesome.
once he got it out of his head, he was like, oh, okay. And then we could work together to work out, okay, so now you can see all these different points and how they all come together, and they're already there. You just got to be able to, use them to the right amount. And off he went. He went off and did his analysis as a chartered accountant, and absolutely flying now. Just the confidence is back, knows what to do, knows where to get to, knows what the goal is. But I guess on the reflection, the goal wasn't really set by him. The goal was set as a revenue goal by the bosses, the partners in the firm. And so he was like, how am I going to get there? Once he felt in control, once he could spell that out, had a strategy, then he was cool. He was absolutely fine and absolutely going well. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's as we're talking, this is it all starts to crystallize, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's rewarding stuff though, Chris. That must be really satisfying.
Oh, it is really satisfying. I love working with people to do that because I'm sure it's the same for you, Duncan, because we're trying to get people further along their path. We're trying to help them to find the contentment that you mentioned earlier versus the discontentment, and to be able to sleep at night, to be able to work decent hours, to be able to see their family because their mind is at rest and they're focused on what they need to do. That clarity, that focus, and the clarity just are so good for people. I think, and that's definitely where it's most rewarding for me as an advisor.
Yeah, and because I thought of one key thing that you'll really like. So this comes from my dad again. So our mind can only hold 7 pieces of information. So have you come across that before?
No, I've come across the unconscious mind versus the conscious mind, and the conscious mind is very, very, very limited compared to the unconscious mind.
Yeah. So working memory. So working memory, which is a thing. So if I gave you 7 numbers to remember, okay, and you'd be able to repeat them because 7 digits, you'd likely be able to repeat them back.
Like a phone number, yeah.
But then if I gave you another 7 numbers to remember, okay, you might be able to repeat those back. But then if I asked you about the first 7, they'd be gone. Does that make sense?
I'd have to write it down.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a really good indication of working memory's 7 digits. Okay. So people try and use their brain to solve complex problems, but the working memory can't hold 7 digits. It can't do complex problems at all. So because the minute it starts looking at one set of 7 digits, the other ones disappear. So that's what we're dealing with. And so when you had that client who you've got to put it down on paper or on a whiteboard's the best thing because they're so big. And that's then the brain. Once you've done that, the brain's tied them all together with its synapses. It's tied this big picture together. That it couldn't previously because it could only do 7 digits. You've done it on paper. It can now tie the whole thing together in one big, mind map. And now that's permanent for him. He can see that whiteboard whenever he wants, because the brain's, so that's the power of paper and whiteboards and the work you do.
Yeah, and the work I guess I do. So we're probably drawing towards a conclusion, but there's something I want to reflect on with you, given you've both worked with the body as a personal trainer and with the fitness, but also now with the mind. How do you balance between body and mind? Are both important? Is one more important than the other? How do you advise people, especially those who are stressed in professional services, to balance it and achieve what they want to achieve their goals?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Chris. Because I really went down the yoga route, which is very physical, and then the more you get into that, the more mental it becomes. And then Buddhism, actually, they do very little physical work. And I've studied Buddhism as well. They just focus on the mind. But with what you've asked, I know I've experienced. So I've done just done yoga and meditation for a while, and not done too much exercise. But when we do exercise, we get endorphins. We feel great. And I think that's really, I think doing exercise, we can forget to do it, and it clears our mind and we feel great. So exercise activity should definitely be in our diary, and also it keeps our body young and healthy. So I'd say exercise is really good, like two to three times a week. Um, but definitely six times a week. We don't need to go anywhere near those numbers. 2 to 3, it's like kind of really nice. And then, but yeah, then I would definitely advise people to work on the mind from, like, as a tool, like, as a skill. Like, concentration is a skill that we can train with mindfulness. Also, when our mind's racing, don't you can if you've got a lot going on in your mind, really difficult issues going on in your mind, just write through them on a piece of paper. That's the best thing to do. The mind can't fix a complex issue. Piece of paper, easy peasy. So
Yeah.
Write it down on a piece of paper, solve the problem, get it off your mind. So yeah, stop using your mind to store information. It's terrible at that. To solve problems, it's not very good at that either. Use a piece of paper for that. Use a piece of paper to store information. And then also, you've got amazing guided practices to clear your mind. And then you've got things like learning about concentration, like through mindfulness, is really nice.
It really is a balance between body and mind, and you can't leave either out. They both have to have some treatment.
Yeah. And overall, to answer that question much better than I did before, I would just say, you just observe how your mind and body will respond to what you're doing all day, what the hardest medium is. So we're constantly training our mind and body, and that's how our mind and body will be, how we train it. So we need to be training it for how we want it to be. So it's just being aware of what you're doing all day, and then making sure there's different. If you want it to be a different way to how you're behaving all day, put those elements in, if that makes sense.
It does. And as you said, we've talked about a lot of concepts today. So just to draw us to a close, if we were to leave our listeners, our viewers with, one, I guess, piece of solid advice out of everything we've discussed, what would that be in your view?
Such a good observation and question, Chris. Everything should be simple, and we should be able to remember it. Okay, so all the stuff we've discussed today, it shouldn't be complex. Life should be simple, because we talked about that 7 digits. If you can't remember it in your mind, it's too complex. So everything should be nice and simple. So yeah, I would just say, the one thing to take away, okay, we're all stressed, we're in a stressful world, is the sigh. So every time you sit down, try and do a sit, sigh, and a smile. That would be my big takeaway. It's just, if you can make that into part of your life. So every time you sit down, you go, life would be a lot better.
That is an amazingly simple but effective thing. That is an amazingly simple. A lot of the stuff we've talked about can be quite time consuming, but that is so simple, easy, and you can do it standing, sitting, wherever. Amazing. All right. Thank you, Duncan. If people want to get in touch with you to get some coaching, to find out more about your views, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah. LinkedIn's really good. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I made up my name, Duncan Starr-Boltt. My wife was a star, so I'm easy to find. And how I work, I always chat with the person first, so we can have a chat, and I'll help, and I'll genuinely try and help you. And then if you want to do coaching after that, that's great. But if you just want to get to know me, that's good too.
Well, you're a good guy, so I've definitely been grateful for the time you've given us today and getting to know you even better. So yeah, thank you for joining us today on Muhami Matters.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, Chris. You're a really good host. This has been one of the best podcasts I've done. Incredible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, with that is going to make me blush. So to our audience, who are always very supportive of us, I guess what really stands out for me is what Duncan just said, not about me, what Duncan just said about using the simple things. It does come down to simplicity. Put things down on paper, get things out of your head. It's amazing how little you can keep in your conscious mind, in the front of your mind, in your working memory. You need to get it out, and then you can refer to it and you can relax and move forward a lot better. So clarity is not just a business concept. It affects how we work, how we lead, and how we move through our lives, and I guess how we set our goals and make decisions. So for ambitious professionals, founders, and advisors, there's really a lot of pressure to keep striving, to keep going, keep achieving, keep moving. But as Duncan explained, if we only become skilled at striving, we might also become skilled at discontentment. So don't lose ambition, but make it realistic and have a plan, have a path to get there. And there's people that can help you out. It's a powerful message. So to all our audience, if you're building a business, advising clients, leading a team, or simply trying to create more space to think clearly, the starting point's often the same. Know what matters, decide what doesn't, and then act with great intention. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with your network. For more insights and support, as always, visit us at muhami.ae. Connect with me at CJA Consulting. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered. Thank you for joining us on Muhami Matters. If you found today's episode valuable, subscribe and connect with me to stay updated. Join me again soon as we continue to bring you credible insights, practical strategies, and trusted advice to empower your professional journey. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered. Thank you for joining us on Muhami Matters. If you found today's episode valuable, subscribe and connect with me to stay updated. Join me again soon as we continue to bring you credible insights, practical strategies, and trusted advice to empower your professional journey. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered. Thank you for joining us on Muhami Matters. If you found today's episode valuable, subscribe and connect with me to stay updated. Join me again soon as we continue to bring you credible insights, practical strategies, and trusted advice to empower your professional journey. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered.